What's up guys, this is Scher talking, welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I'll be making a full review for the Romancing Festival Tatyana Valentine Banner. That is actually a spotlight for Hana. That is a support unit that can buff, debuff, apply attack, defense, boosts, and a lot of other things. Besides Hana, there's Tatyana that can also give a little bit of everything, but is somewhat still a damage dealer. Not as strong as her past version though. And Myriam that can heal a lot and attack multiple times, but with a lot of RNG. Let's go straight out to our srs.xyz website, and I'm going to start with Hana, because she is really the selling point of this banner. We have 98% endurance and 104% will. Those values are just average, and they can be a problem later. She has 117% STR, but she will hardly attack. 94% agility, that can be a problem. This is a status that should have been higher, but I understand she has a very specific gameplay, and her charisma is a little above the normal, but as you can see, nothing here is stellar. Moving on, she starts the fight with 12 BP because of her skill number 3, and on the start of a round, she grants all surviving allies besides self delay stance. Delay stance make it so that everyone has delay, and it's because of her gameplay. On the start of a turn, she gets 2 BP, so she's a 5 BP per turn character. On the start of a turn, she also recovers everyone's HP by around 350. She will also buff Endurance and Will by 20%. Those are very important status that will help you survive versus enemies, especially from ailments. And then she also grants all surviving allies this full stomach benefits. I will be talking about that in a few. Then, on the start of a turn, she also gives 15% attack boost to everyone, 15% defense boost to everyone, only for that turn. Then, if she reaches 0 HP, she will then heal everyone by around 2.5 thousand. And then, she has Intrinsic Club 5, 30% damage increase, 40% damage reduction when resisting, and then a 37% chance to evade resisted attacks. Skill number 1 is Lag Crush. That is a free skill that can debuff the enemy agility by 15% on max level. Whatever. The second skill is Chocolate Present. That one is interesting. It grants all surviving allies damage block for 2 turns, and then all other surviving allies the 2 full skill. That is what applies delayed stance, and this time it's for 2 turns instead of 1. That is important because you only have 1 free 2 full, as you can see here on the start of a round, and then you have to keep reapplying this effect. And damage block for 2 turns with a 6 BP skill. That is insane, but can only be used once per battle. It is the same thing that you can do with Empress. Remember Empress? Well, Global X Empress, back from 2021. She has Imperial Shield, and that costs 9 BP and 2 LP to block damage for 1 turn. And then you can cast it again, because it spends 2 LP. You cannot spend 6. And then it could block damage for 2 turns, but even on start, Final Empress could not use it twice in a row. She needed extra support. But that is still something viable on the game. Blocking damage is interesting, but you cannot block ailments with this. But look, what we have here is a 2 turns block. Hana and Empress can even use it together for 4 turns block if you want. That is pretty interesting by itself. And you should use this on turn 1 to give that to full effect and then a damage block for 2 turns, so that you have time to prepare for when you start receiving damage. You will actually decrease that by more. Now, skill 3 is called Decorate Wish, and that is a full AoE attack with E power. That's right, forget about damage. But when the attack lands, she would then reduce the target's status by 30% on max level. That is insane. 30% status buff for all status. But not just that, she will also buff all surviving alliance status by 40% on max level. So we're talking about best type of debuff and best type of buff on the same skill for 12 BP cost. And then she will also grant all other surviving alliances to full effect for 2 times. Okay, so 12 BP to use this, and you kind of want to use this every turn, because First of all, let's understand. Hana casts 2 full to your party, so they will be on delay. Why would you want that? Why would that make sense? Because Hana is your buffer debuffer, and the benefits of being on 2 full are amazing. Because when they are on delay stance, she will cast full stomach benefits. Now, if you are attacked on that delay stance, you reduce damage taken by 30%. And then, activate all following effects. One time only. An attack boost for everyone that will increase their damage potential by 10%, lasts for 2 turns, and stack. In a defense boost of large effect, but only for that turn. According to JP, a large defense boost decreases damage taken by 25% because this is casted as a passive. And then you also recover all surviving allies BP by 1. So, everyone besides Hana gets this. So, if they are on delay, and the enemy used an AoE attack, you're going to trigger all of these effects for 4 different characters. That means 4 stacks of minus 25% damage for that turn only. Okay, that's cool. And 4 stacks of attack boost that will give you 40% damage increase for that turn and the next. Because the enemy is attacking before you, you take advantage of both attack boosts for 80% damage starting from turn 2 onwards. And if you get hit by an AoE, everyone gets 4 BP. Every turn. Even Hana. Hana is a 5 BP per turn character, right? If she gets 4 from this effect, then she now has 9. She only needs extra 3 to use her skill number 3 every turn. But even if she cannot use her skill every turn, the effect, call it to full, lasts for 2 times. But you actually want to use this every turn unless you're gonna get into problems. Because everyone else is on delay, you only have Hana to buff and debuff. She will always debuff the enemy when the attack lands. There's no chance. She does not rely on intelligence. Even though she has 104%, it is more for her skill 1 that has a chance to debuff. Another inheritance that had a chance to debuff. But no, you actually just want to use this skill, and that one will always debuff the enemy. The problem is just her speed that may not be enough. She has to go before the enemy, and she does not even have a fast skill. Look, her agility is a problem. You can see here being 94% only. You can use the Godspeed stance formation if you want to guarantee that Hana goes first, and then buff debuff, and that will reduce the amount of stress in a fight, but there is a problem. That formation is not really made for boss fights. Monica proven that you can actually use that one if you want. But then, should you? Sometimes you are losing some effects by not using stuff like Rising King, Rising Phoenix EX, and also Elemental Shutter formation. So, using Hana is hard, but using her on full potential can also lead to very interesting setups. Okay, now that we understand, we need a squad that can generate another 3 BP, and characters that don't need to benefit from fast effects to work on their full potential. For example, a certain type of character will not work well with Hana, and that one is, for example, Hannibal. Why Hannibal? Because Hannibal has to attack to enter his counter stance. But she works with people like Julian. Julian always counters. Doesn't have to use an active skill in order to do so. Characters like Emperor, you need to use a skill in order to trigger counter. As you can see here from Radiant Saber. So, many characters don't work well with Hana. And that's cool. I think it's okay. It's just another type of strategy. And Hana may allow you to use 2 full-time damage dealers, where in many squads we don't have space for 2 full-time damage dealers. We have to bring so much effects that, well, you cannot fit those characters. Using Hana brings another type of problem. If the enemy self-buffs, you will still have to buff break the enemy. But depending on the number of attacks of the enemy, it may just self-buff so much that her buff debuff will not be enough to protect you from ailments. Another one that works well is Leon. Leon gives you a passive that every time that you are hit, you will then buff 5% of all status. And you also buff 20% for all status on start of a turn. And Leon can eventually give 3 BP to the party, exactly what Hana. Another character that combos pretty well with Hana is Hawk. Because Hawk has that very interesting effect where he applies defense boost when hit, and that lasts for 2 turns. So in this case, you're gonna decrease damage taken by a lot, and it's something that happens when you are hit, and just like Hana once. The only problem is that his pirate command will only work after the enemy attack. But Hana already provides enough support that your characters in Hawk will survive anyway. But now let's understand all Hana rules when making a squad. First, you should not use overdrive. That's right. Because when you do, you are attacking before the enemy, and her effects will not trigger. You should only use overdrive if you know that you're going to finish the fight. Hana can use overdrive if she wants, because she's always outside the other 4 characters. All fast attacks will become delay. So, in those cases that you need to use a fast attack and enter a stance, those become useless. And then you will get a lot of damage on the first hit, because Hana only applies the defense boosts after you get hit. So you won't have up to 4 defense boosts, but then after you get an AoE attack, you can get 4 defense boosts, and Hana will decrease damage taken by quite a lot. Another rule is Hana has to be faster than your enemy. She will have to buff and debuff before the enemy attacks, and that's why she can combo well with the Godspeed transformation, or any slot that increases her agility further. If you understand all of this, Hana can be a very good character in your party, allowing you to bring 2 damage dealers or even more, depending on the fight. Other problem can be when you need to buff break, because if the enemy self-buffs too much, and you actually needed to buff break before it attacks, it may not work super well with Hana, because she cannot allow your party to attack before the enemy. But in the right situations, Hana will be the leader, and she will help your 4 characters do much more. But even then, when talking about remembrance fights, Hana is a must-have for clubs. Moving forward, all bosses will be on the same difficulty as Megalith Dragon, and we don't have many club users in the game. Even moving forward, we don't have clubs on the SaGa Emerald Beyond game that will have many banners, and will have 2 months without any club user. So if you care about remembrance, summoning for Hana is important, especially because Tatyana is here as well. And she opens a lot of strategies by being a buffer, debuffer, defense booster, attack booster. She does not heal much, but even then, you get healings. So people will be using her for hard challenges. She is a leader and changes how we tackle content. Right now we have lots of different ways to beat content, and there are a need of many different roles, but Hana is interesting and very useful. I believe she deserves a 5 out of 5, but you need to understand how to use her. If you don't, it may even be okay to skip if you don't care about remembrance. There will always be alternatives in other ways to beat bosses, but she is really amazing. There is no need for inheritance. Nothing here really matters, because it just does not offer the same type of utility. Hana is a standalone character and will work for the time being. Moving on, we have Tatyana. I want to talk about her because she's another club user, and we have 125% SDR. Could have been higher because Tatyana is known for her high SDR. 101% endurance, and you are just average these days, with 85% dexterity and 88% agility. I don't know why they gave her intelligence. She does not need to debuff. And then there's very high love and charisma. Moving on, she starts the fight with 11 BP because she has a skill that costs 11. Then she grants herself this passive called Pass It On. When being attacked, she would then buff all other surviving allies' endurance and will by 15%. And then she grants all other surviving allies Pass It On turn 1 as well. So that, look, same as Hana, if everyone is hit, then everyone will then pass this to other ones, meaning that you're going to get as much as 75% endurance in will buff when being attacked. And the interesting part is that, look, there is no restriction. It doesn't say that it only triggers once. So if the enemy keeps attacking you, you're going to keep buffing endurance and will. But the problem is that pass it on is not so easy to keep in the character. We'll talk more about that later. On the start of a turn, she also gives a 15% attack and defense boost. We also recover 1 BP. And then she also grants herself Weak Stamp. Weak Stamp is the same passive as her past style, that when you land a weak attack, you are going to chase with Triple Stamp twice. Triple Stamp is a 3-hit attack with deep power that will grant an attack boost that increases damage potential by 15% on each hit. But even then, if it's just one trigger, you're going to get 6 chases when landing a weak attack. Her older version had double Triple Stamp because it lasted for 2 turns, and then you could just attack and then chase with 12 hits starting from turn 12. But the past Tatyana cannot use Overdrive because she only get that when she's not on Overdrive. Okay, but moving on. When recovery actions are made, she recovers 5 VP to herself, and will also grant targets damage block for 1 time 1 turn. Why? Because Tatyana can use an AoE skill called Sugary Full Cars that will then recover our allies, will also revive if needed, and grant pass it on for 2 turns. Okay, for 5 VP, you're gonna get that 5 VP back. The healing should be pretty strong. It will heal for more than 2,500 on max level. And 2 turns of pass it on allows you to buff endurance and will when being hit. It will keep triggering as long as the enemy is attacking, but the problem is, you should not use this on turn 1, you should actually use this on turn 2 onwards. You have turns where you don't have this. So if you are caring about protecting ailments or reducing damage just by Tatyana alone, problems will happen, since it's not 100% of the time active. Okay, but then you get this another usage every 5 turns. That will allow you to just use this again on turn 6 if you want. And you want, because this passive is very good. Remember that buffs last for 4 turns, but they have decay. They lose 25% value on each new turn. If the enemy does not buff break you, you can still actually benefit from Tatyana alone as a buffer. But most bosses will use some sort of buff break every 2 turns or so. So Tatyana is still hard to use. She can buff your love and charisma on the start of a turn by 20%. She also casts an end of turn recover that can trigger 2 times. That means that on the end of a turn, she's going to recover your HP by around 800 at least, or more. Very close to 1000, I believe. And she will also recover another 2 BP. So she actually has 6 BP per turn. That's right. The last passive increases damage potential by 20%, and on the start of a turn, she casts defense up to herself, decreasing damage taken by 15% for the whole fight. Triggers 5 times multiplicatively, so she actually receives very low damage from enemy attacks. But it's also her only damage reduction passive, besides the AoE defense boost. So turn 1, she takes more damage than anyone else, then after 5 turns, she will actually probably receive less damage than anyone. Unless you have Final Emperor. Skill number 1 is called Double Blow. It's a single target attack that hits 2 times with E power. That will be very similar to a double S power attack if you are using triple S weapon. It's cheap and useful, but you actually want to use skill 3, Extraordinary Spoon Banging. It is a single target blunt attack with just C power and uses 11 BP, but then instantly recover 1 BP to everyone. So in the end, you're going to spend 10, and she gets 6, meaning that she will need another 4 BP from external sources. If you are using Leon in your party, that may not be enough. But if you are using Hana and not Leon, Hana gives 4 if everyone is hit. But then, if you are using other sources, it won't be that hard. Then you're going to recover HP. That will be at least 400. You're going to buff Endurance, Will, Love, and Charisma by 25%. You're going to buff SGR, Dexterity, Agility, and Intelligence by 30%. Then you're going to cast a Guard Up in a Morale Up Small. Morale Up Small increases damage potential by 15%. Does not stack. In Guard Up Small reduces damage taken by 12% only and cannot stack as well. But then there's also an attack and defense boost of small effect. Both will have 15% value. Okay, so there's a lot of effects, and this will really help on remembrance fights because we don't have many club units. And although you cannot stack Morale Up and Guard Up, you can have 2 stacks of defense boost alongside all the status buffs. Even when we are talking about Megalith Dragon, the defense boost that you have will help. Remember that she already casts one of 15%. Okay, she can be your main healer in clubs. Totally, because she can even heal 3 times in some turns that you can use Extraordinary Spoon Banging. If you cannot use it every turn, you're gonna cycle with Double Blow. Okay, her damage is not insane, but you still have 6 chase attacks of deep power, and each new hit will increase damage potential by 15%. It is good enough, and will eventually kill an enemy. We should also discuss the utility of this skill, Extraordinary Spoon Banging, inherited into her damage dealer style. Okay, the damage dealer style can chase with 12 hits. So, instead of using triple stamp to make it for 15 hits, you can use skill tree from her current style and apply a lot of effects to the party. And then attack with 12 chases. It is a good trade-off. You may lose a little bit of damage, but then you are applying a lot of effects to the party. You can also just use that sugary full course inheritance to just apply that, pass it on, and recover when needed. But since this will actually wear off in 2 turns, I don't feel like it's really useful. So, Tatyana is good as she is. She does not need the past version. But if you do have, you add more utility to just have an offensive style with effects. Or you will still use a defensive style with lower damage output, but will help more on Remembrance because survival is important. I would say that because she is a club user, her value increases a lot. And her endurance and will buffs are very good on start. If the enemy does not buff break you, she will be enough. If it does, then you're going to need extra help. Anyway, Tatyana is a very good option even if you have the past one, and deserves at least a 4 out of 5. In my opinion, the only things that draw Tatyana back is that damage is scaling super high now, that damage dealers will do much more. And her supports are not really easy because it doesn't last for every single turn. Still, very good. Moving on, we have Myriam, and Myriam is a mage. 99% agility is pretty bad. I don't know why. 134% intelligence, and 90 endurance, 120 will. Will is always good for mages. Everything else is just standard. Moving on, we have 40% increase in damage for heat-based attacks. Starts the fight 15 BP because of her skill number 3. She also grants herself Lovely Present, that when she attacks, she's going to cast a defense boost for all surviving allies. This is just 10% value because it actually has passive value, non-active. But it lasts for 2 turns and will definitely stack. Start of a turn, she gets 2 BP, so she is a 5 BP per turn character. And then she grants herself this another fire for 1 time and lasts for 5 turns. When you use skill number 3, you will activate Wild Fireballs Plus. We're going to talk about that in a few. On the start of a turn, she also grants a random enemy Crazy Love and Mesmerize it, but only 1 stack. Crazy Love, it's something that we saw in the latest Rapier version of Rock Bouquet, and when you apply this on the enemy, and you attack that enemy right after, you're going to cast an attack boost to your party that will increase damage potential by 10%. It's just that. It's not really great for current game. But then mesmerize it. When this enemy is attacked, you're going to recover all surviving allies' HP by very small. That would be higher than 300. That is much more interesting. Lasts for 5 turns, but forget about this because once you attack the enemy, it's over. Then we have 50% weak heat up every turn for 4 times, increasing damage potential by another 200. Then she increases her damage potential by another 40. And when attack damage taken is reduced by 30%. Okay, simple passives. Skill 1 is a free roll attack with E power that you will use when you don't have BP, so that you don't have to use a normal attack. Second one is once per fight skill that has B power and 5 BP cost, that before attacking grants the user lovely present. Permanent in battle. So what? When attacking now, you're going to apply this defense boost that decreases damage taken by 10% for 2 turns twice. That is interesting, so 2 stacks of 10%. But what about Ignite Hearts, her skill number 3? This is a fast roll attack with triple S power that when the attack hits, you're going to grant the target a Crazy Love and a Mesmerized. Each will have 10 stacks. So, if you already use it Sweet Blaze, and you should start with this skill. Then when you use Ignite Hearts, and you cast that 10 stacks of Crazy Love and 10 stacks of Mesmerized, remember that you have the Another Fire effect. Every turn you get another fire. That is much similar to Hippolyta if you have that one. Hippolyta also got Infernal Fire. In her case, it was for 10 turns. And that will trigger on Overdrive. In the case of Myriam, this will trigger when she uses skill 3. It's a different rule. But you decided to use Ignite Hearts on turn 2, for example. Then you're going to have 2 of the Another Fire stacked. And you're going to chase with that Wild Fireball Plus. This skill is a lot of RNG. It hits between 2 to 7 times with D power. Yeah. Imagine the difference in damage between 2 hits and 7 hits. The average will be around 4 to 5 hits. And, well, that is still a lot of damage. And since you're casting Crazy Love and Mesmerized, and you're going to hit twice with 5 on turn 2, on average, Myriam herself can actually trigger all of the effects of Crazy Love and Mesmerized. 10 stacks of Crazy Love is the same as 100% damage boost. And then, Mesmerized means 10 very small healings. That is way too much. That will heal from 0 to max. That's right. And it is okay to actually use Fire Beam and then Ignite Hearts in a 2-turn cycle. But, look, the skill is fast, so good enough. You may actually need to heal more than this, and if you do, you're gonna need a lot of BP batteries. I believe you should just ignore and use Ignite Hearts every 2 turns, or even every 3 turns. But in those cases, you have to check if the enemy is dealing too much damage. She will also apply the defense boosts for each wild fireball she uses. For example, on turn 2, you will apply 6 defense boosts of 10%. So, it eventually stacks to reach good values. Now, is Myriam a very strong damage dealer? I don't know, not reliable, and she needed a chase attack besides that Crazy Love, in my opinion. And I believe that she's more of a gimmick character that can be very useful in fire squads. We already have fire leaders, like latest Emerald. The latest Emerald will allow her to cast another defense boost via her elemental attack blessings. And you can also use Firebringer. You will get other fire leaders in the future. The fire leader allows you to buff status by 20%, heal HP and BP, but it's just to self, not to the whole party. So there is this small problem. But as she is, she will help a lot on remembrance if you're having difficulty, because we don't have that many defense boosters. Well, Ray is here, and we also just got Sochis. They are very defensive damage dealers somehow. But Myriam will eventually do more damage than both Sochis and Ray with good RNG. Without good RNG, you can still just do okay damage. Good thing is that on remembrance fights, she will always be landing weak attacks. As for other challenges, she's just a single elemental damage dealer and one that is hard to use. But in some squads, she can be your main healer if you can cycle Ignite Hearts every 2 turns. In those cases, I feel like she provides good enough support. It's worth to say that Myriam can cast Crazy Love for multiple targets. For example, if there are 4 enemies aligned in a row, she's going to cast 10 stacks of Crazy Love for each one of them. But in those cases, Wild Fireballs will not be enough to trigger all of the 40 stacks of Crazy Love. You're going to need many other characters attacking in order to trigger, and this lasts for only 1 turn, so you have a problem in your hands. It is actually easier to manage versus a single enemy and get to 10 stacks, but anything above that will be hard to reach. If you have Emerald, then Myriam value increases. If you have both Emerald and Firebringer, it increases even further. I feel like Myriam is much easier to skip than Hana and Tatyana, and because of that, she deserves a 3.5 out of 5. There's no need for inheritances since her kit just screams to use Ignite Hearts. And Ignite Hearts is a good skill. If we get another Myriam in the future, you will probably want to inherit. Or even Sweet Blaze to cast more defense boosts. Now, if you have the latest version of Myriam before this one, you can also inherit Ultraviolet Burst and use it if you want to wait 5 turns to cast your skill tree. But in those cases, you will actually just lose part of the value. You will actually use her more of a damage dealer instead of a support. So you can apply Guard Up, Heat, and Sun Defense Boost, and wait to use her skill tree on turn 5 so that you have 5 chases. It's okay, but I don't know, you don't actually need that. With all that said, let's move on to the banner image. Is this banner worth summoning for, in my opinion? Yes! Really, I'll give it a gold minus award because of Hana being a 5 out of 5. And Tatyana still having a very good value because she's club. Those 2 characters together will be enough for most people to clear remembrance, even with other characters being weak. Myriam is still okay, although nothing stellar. You can still find utility if you are missing on other Mage supports. And I pulled it here, still haven't got Hana or Tatyana, but I probably will eventually. And those are my opinions. What is yours? Please say here on the comment section. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you haven't. And if you want to support the channel, use the links on the description. Hope to see you soon on the next video. Goodbye.